We are live, we are live, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talk Talk Live. Let me get back onto the full cam here, ladies and gentlemen, on my YouTube feed. And we are there, we are here, we are now here, live here on Talk Talk Live. Yes, I've got the Steve Kornacki look tonight. Yes, the khaki based analyst. I thought I'd mirror his look tonight. Sorry, I didn't get the glasses, but I don't need them. Anyways, back again tonight on Talk Talk Live here on IG and YouTube. I thought we'd go for a change of pace tonight. I thought, instead of intersexual dynamics, I thought we'd go the political route, and we discuss what happened last night between Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Very good debate, very spirited, a lot of moments. I'm sure you've been on the rotation of late night talk shows who have been talking about this debate, which is I think it's reached a boiling point, and it's neck and neck. Quite simply, a lot of and this was one that was going to be for the undecided voter out there, and a lot of things to chew, a lot of fat to chew, a lot of things to decide to choose from, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you very much for joining me in Talk Talk Live right here on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. On the road to 1,000 subscribers. And sponsored by DunTalk.com. Thank you for joining me tonight. Sorry for a bit of a delay. I was doing some extra research for the show because I was listening. I'll tell you what. I was listening to the debate at, I think, a 2.0 speed as soon as I got home from work, so I can just capture the best moments here. Although I do have better moments already saved up. But, again, we're going to go through those, and then we're going to go through it step by step, piece by piece, and come to a conclusion as to who won and who lost this debate. Now, let me say this. My conclusion may shock a few as to my stance on my channel, on my show. However, we're going to find out about that in the end. But at the end of the day, it was a very spirited debate. Very, very spirited. Some gave quarters, some didn't. I won't reveal who they were, but I'm sure you can draw your own conclusions on that. No matter what what camp you're ensconced in, quite simply. But anyways, we're gonna get into this right away. So what we're gonna do is we're first gonna go through the first, the highlights of matters and really proceed them down, and then we're gonna go a little full length as to what really mattered, some of the highlights of things here, and really break down the debate, which was made for lively viewing. Sorry I didn't get to you guys yesterday on Talk Talk Live, but quite simply, everybody's looking at the debate. I even want to look at the debate, as this was the first debate between Kamala and Donald, and it turned out to be quite the page turner storyteller. So let me just get back to the browser here, and let me get into my section here. Now again, there we go. That's better. There we are. So what we want to do right now is first, I was going to do this second, but let's do it first. Let's get to some of the highlights of what transpired yesterday on the debate between Kamala and Donald. And just break down a few of their points, and a few of their shots across the bow, and see how they fared on each shot. Quite simply, so we have this top highlights U.S. Presidential Debate 2024 post made up by Mint. Sign up to Mint, doing wonderful things in the YouTube streets. 600,000 subscribers, not bad at all. And so we're gonna get into this right now. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. 100%. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do this. Let me go big screen, and we can get into it. Yes, you're allowed to formulate your own opinion on things, on matters here regarding the presidential election. However, let's see how it goes down. Let's see how it goes down here. With this Mint entry here, showing the highlights of what went down last night. Let's go.
Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit.
We're doing tariffs on other countries.
One thing we got to give Kamala Harris credit for yesterday is the fact that she came out swinging. She did not hold back. She had to be the aggressor. She had to set the lay the playing field, and because she knew that Donald was going to eventually come out swinging himself. So she landed the first blow quite simply. She wasn't holding back here, and kudos to her. She had to be the aggressor. She was the challenger. Again, Donald was the former president, so she came out swinging with her own plan, because not a lot of people knew what her platform was, what her politics were in terms and what her agenda was in the first 100 days, if not in the first year of her presidency. And quite simply, she came out with tax cuts for the middle class, which is something that would appeal to most people out there. Most people are suffering in the middle class, and they're looking for a tax break. So excellent work there by Kamala. I give her credit for that. It's up for my man, Mr. Trump, to respond.
Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country. First of all, they bought their chips from...
All right, so again, Donald fights back, saying that, the last 4 years haven't been great, especially with this high inflation rates that... the country, if not the world, is suffering from, the United States, that is. And it is a bit of a shock. It's a bit of a body blow there, because again, the current administration is responsible for that. So the Donald strikes back on that. So I give a point to each side on that one. But again, we will move on and forward into this thing. So again, I'm just moving as quick as possible through this, and again, we're going to get into the depths of certain incendiary topics in due course in the latter part of the show. But again, great debate, good points on each side for both of them. So I give them a point each.
Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say They have to hate our country.
And Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not.
Okay, so Donald really launched into things. We're going to get into that part of the debate soon enough. But what Donald was really trying to do was use the divide and conquer sort of method of politics. In that, I mean, he clearly has strident views. He clearly wants, he clearly trying to make an enemy of immigrants and minorities. Definitely, he's not one for them, and he's made that quite clear throughout not only his presidency but this current campaign. My apologies, and he makes no bones about it. It's he always is referring to the fact that he said it way back when he was campaigning for his first presidential stint. And that is, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime. So he brought that back up again. He's saying that these people are taking your jobs, and so he's doing a bit of fear mongering, quite simply. And is it coming of him? Not really, but that is base talk. He's catering to his base with that. They're gonna eat that up. They're gonna, that is, red meat to them, and it's something that will appeal to his base, quite simply. Not necessarily middle of the road undecided voters. He's not. They won't really like that because again, it's showing a bit of his jingoistic / yellow journalistic / to be fair, racist side, quite simply. I mean, to a certain extent, but again, these quote unquote shithole countries that he will always refer to. He's referring to there, and quite simply, it is the politics of yesterday, but he's brought back to life now. Again, if given the opportunity, that's the only thing he can win on because it appeals to his base. So again, he was going to do that. He was going to give them some red meat. He gave them his base some red meat. So again, they'll be quite appreciative of that. But in terms of the rest of the world, I don't think they would necessarily. Let's go into what Kamala says about abortion.
Not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. If you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him.
Stopping there until she launches into that. Okay, one thing that we have to make clear tonight. This was staged on ABC, so a lot of centrist / left-wing politics are going to be left out on the table, quite simply, because this is based on entertainment. And quite simply, a lot of talking points, a lot of campaign issues, such as abortion, were going to be left on the table. And that is meat and drink to a person like Kamala Harris. She's going to eat that up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And she couldn't wait to speak about that. And you can see that she was ready for such I mean, her analogy there was, quite simply, quite vivid, quite perfect, quite simply, and she really painted a picture there that would help not only help her appeal to the young, but also to women. Definitely a big win in terms of that. I mean, Donald couldn't speak much on that. He had to just sit there and take it on that one. That was a Goodfellas moment for Donald, and all such things involving abortion, she was going to win on. So again, this is speaking to the audience. I think if this was on Fox News, such a question wouldn't be on the table. Definitely wouldn't be on the table because they would try to play a home field advantage for Donald. But there, it was served up and served up for Kamala to hit out of the park, and she did it. She did it with aplomb, and kudos to her. It was an easy serve. When you're talking about abortion, when you're talking about Roe v. Wade and its outlaw and moving abortion to state-run laws, Kamala's going to win that one every time. And quite simply, they put it on a plate for her. That was an easy win for Kamala. But again, her the way she took things down in terms of the issue was well done by her. So give Kamala credit. She did what she had to do.
Former Chief of Staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former National Security Advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term.
See, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him.
This is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate.
Again, Donald getting back into his bag in terms of The Apprentice and his lead on the show, and he's known as the guy who fired employees who were underperforming, and those who he considered his enemies, and he certainly did that there. So it was a bit of a turnabout face there. He's alluding to the fact that they were jealous of the fact that he was the Donald and he was calling the shots, and so this was a moment for Donald to win back and gain his reputation back, and saying that they were bad employees, so he had to fire them. So it's a more of a lover's scorn sort of scenario rather than him being incompetent. Now again, I don't know how much he won back in doing that, but I think yeah. Here's the thing. Donald is a one-term president. He's the only former president who's been indicted on crimes in the public. So again, for her to bring that to the attention of the American voter, Kamala did a hell of a job there, and I would give a point to Kamala in that case. I mean, listen, Trump's mask is slipping. Quite simply. And he, there's only so much he can say. No, it's only so much he can do. When these people are judging him being competent and out of his depth, and someone, and I'm paraphrasing here, someone who clearly does not have a handle on the job, it's going to hurt you. It's going to really, really hurt you, because, you look at the likes of his I think his most hated opponent, the one that Trump really dislikes, quite simply, and that is President Barack Obama. He had a spotless record. Yes, he did fail on policies, but again, his behavior inside and outside of the White House has been exemplary, and something that even Donald can live up to. So, yeah, I would say in this instance, yeah, it's a Kamala win. It's a definite Kamala win. in terms of calling him incompetent and necessarily so, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are. Let's continue.
The Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that went nowhere.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentence.
Look at what's going on in the Middle East.
Again, Trump's got to own that. He's taken a lot of L's in time, and even the most staunchest of supporters of Trump will have to, they'll say it's a conspiracy theory. They don't want to, besmirch his name. Yeah, I get it. But the fact of the matter is, the U.S. State Department and also a lot of these attorney generals in each of these states. I think he has one still pending in Georgia and another still pending in Pennsylvania. But his New York legal proceedings have concluded, and he's been found guilty on 34 counts. So the sins are there for all to see, and it's another lob, another slow pitch up to Kamala to hit out of the park, and she did. She nailed him to her point to his butt to the mast. But let me say this: Kamala, a former lawyer, she's clearly dissecting this defendant, quite simply Donald Trump, and she's winning, and you gotta give her credit. Another point to Kamala on that one. But again, it's so easy to go against a guy like Donald that I was very, very, I was just out of my mind. I was very, very much confused that the likes of Joe Biden couldn't, do this well against Donald when he has a lot of skeletons in the closet, and he never did. But again, I think he was fighting his own demons, his own battles at the time. So I think his resignation was well warranted. Kamala's come in, give new life to the campaign to the point where now it's neck and neck, and we'll see where it lands us in terms of the end of summer. But hey, give Kamala credit. She did her thing there. Let's go.
This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Stop there. Well done, Kamala. Yeah, I mean, Donald's been accused of being, of being a fan of dictators, being a fan of presidents and prime ministers for life, and she clearly exposed that here. I mean, Donald. One thing that can't be taken away from Donald is he has a lot of foreign policy experience because he was president for a time and he had to run. He had to deal with many a foreign leader, but it is clear that he is a fan of the likes of Putin, a fan of the likes of Kim Jong Un, and it's and I mean. It's sort of a double-edged sword in the sense that, yes, you have great relations with Russia, you have great relations with North Korea, you have great relations with many places that are deemed outlawed to the rest of the world. However, his predilection towards dictatorship is there for all to see. He'd like to be president for life, quite simply, and if he could, he would. But again. It's clear that Kamala does not holds disdain for such ideations, and it's a shame that. But no, it's not. Well, again, Kamala. I'm not saying it's a shame. Kamala brought that out to the forefront, and a lot of people were thinking she just literally said it. She put it out there, and kudos to her for doing it because again, this is something that Donald has had lodged against him, has been accused of. But again, but he hasn't really been able to dismiss her this way, and it's definitely something that he can't shake, he can't deal with, and so kudos to Kamala for bringing that to the forefront. Let's hear what Donald had to say on the same subject.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it. That's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week. Said, I hope she wins.
Shout out to Steve, shout out to Cat
because
Forever,
what he's
shout out
gotten
to
away
Ladder
with
BK.
is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective.
All right, so that is a bit of a preview of the actual debate. Those are some highlights there. Again, Lana BK said this is not to the military. This nod to the military was in direct response to his comments a few weeks ago about Purple Heart recipients. Thank you very much, Lana, for your comment. Yeah, it is definitely he's been known to have disdain for the military. You're right. He's known to have disdain for soldiers, for troops, because again, when he was of military age in the 60s, he was seen as a draft dodger. And, so the military does not take too kindly to Donald, quite simply. And, but again, he's, if there's someone who has foreign policy experience who should have won that section of the debate, it was Donald. That was for him to win. And, I think his diplomacy here can be seen as such. But again, I think his mask slips a bit in terms of his love for dictators and dictatorships. So, you have to, I would call that a draw. Yes, Kamala did have a strike at Donald for his dislike for the military, as seen by Lana BK, and also the fact that he loves the dictators. But again, he did get a lot of relations done, especially to a partner like Russia. Russia was seen as a very our relationship with them had cooled over over the years during Clinton's reign, and also during the likes of George W. Bush, and also to Obama, where things had really, really cooled then. And Trump had revived those relations. There is a quote-unquote theory that Russia helped and aided in getting Trump elected through, little mini-bot ideas from Russian hackers in order to push out a message for Trump. However, let's call a spade a spade. Let's be frank about it. But again, a lot of asked. But when asked about January 6th, he said he's not responsible for security. We are getting there. We are getting there. Yes. This is only a portion of things, because what I did do, as you may or may not know, I went actually to the full video of things. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. ABC Action News. Lord knows ABC, it's mainstream media, yes, but they had the full synopsis, the full Trump debate. Now I listened to this in twice the speed, and again, I've captured some of the highlights here. So let's settle in, let's buckle in here to the actual debate in and of itself here. Again, just noting the two hosts here on the panel. Do you know how, both mirror both candidates? One a light-skinned anchor and biracial, if at all, and one being a white male. Just thinking, just saying. That's. I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think that's a coinky-dink. I think the anchors mirrored the candidates. Just saying. Anyways, let's get into this. This is the full video, so we're gonna speed up to the fifth minute, and we're gonna have a listen to that question there. I believe it's the first part of this is about the plan made by Kamala Harris in terms of getting America back on its economic feet. Let's get there now, and let me get back here for a second. Yes, okay. Let's move back a little further. Give her a little runway, a little leeway. Now, here's the thing okay. Let's go back a little further. Let's have this play out, because I want you to see the first part of this video, and this was brought up to me by actually a commentator yet on a undisclosed network, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. And this is all about body language. Let's continue.
President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump.
Again, nothing similar to the candidates. Can't see anything similar between these hosts and the candidates.
Just the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock.
Okay, let's move. Let's move. Okay, that was a little close. There we go.
Issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living.
Okay, here we go.
Loud. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate. Thank you.
Great. Watch this. And this is pointed out to me by a commentator on another network. But one thing that Kamala wanted to do was set the tone. She came out, opened up her hand and said, because, hey, listen, Donald was not going to shake her hand. Donald wasn't going to do that. He was going to stand on his podium and start the debate. What Kamala did is she went directly to him and actually said her name. I'm Kamala Harris, because as has been said on the campaign trail, Donald was, mispronouncing her name, I would say, in an outward act of defiance and ridicule, quite simply. And, she wanted to get it straight and said, listen, I'm Kamala Harris. Bang. Let's have a great debate. Let's have fun with this. And she set the tone. She said, I'm going to come out aggressive. I'm going to come out swinging. I'm going to come out fighting. And you better be ready. Give her credit. She set the tone, and Donald was put on his heels a bit by there because he was just looking to get to the podium and start. But Kamala was ready to take on his opponent. So well done to Kamala here. She was ready. She was weaponized and raring to go here tonight. So let's let this continue and play out. Now let's move this a little bit further. Well, I'll let this play out a little bit further here.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Excellent. Let me say this. She came to play. She did come to play. That's an excellent. Here's the thing. Kamala came out wanting to be relatable to the rank and file of American voters. So what did she do? She went right to the middle class, giving them a plan, giving them what she would do in her first 100 days. And it's commendable. It's quite simply commendable. Donald's always been seen as a friend of the rich, friend of the of corporate, friend of the top 1%. And Kamala said it straight. I came from a middle class background. I came from a middle class family. I want middle class families to thrive. I don't want to see the middle class die. So here's what I'm going to do for you. And it immediately endeared her to the rank and file of voters, and really it was a genius move. Not only for greeting Donald at the podium and say, "I'm Kamala Harris. Let's have a great debate." Fantastic. She set the tone right there. I'm coming out aggressive. I'm coming out hard. I'm coming out strong. Be ready. And she literally stated her. She literally stated her plan in terms of helping the middle class through her tax break for the middle class and for small business. Amazing job. Let's hear what Donald has to say in return.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. and the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places they've left the tariffs on. When I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to...
Stop there! Oh, Donald. Oh, Donald, not the greatest of starts. You want to divide. You want to disrespect. You've done it on both fronts here, Donald. Listen, I want to like you, but that's not a likable answer. We have a comment here from Lana BK. Pundits report that 70% of Americans want to know more about Kamala, so it was a smart strategic move to start with that. Yes, start with her tax break for middle class. Start with her for her startup business plans, and and really endear the majority of the population to her policies. Now, Donald did the opposite. Number one, he talked about tariffs. Nobody really wants to find out about tariffs because that's more of a GDP issue that not a lot of people within a country really know about or want to know about. They want to know about how much money they're getting, how much money they can earn, how much more money they can earn, and that's what Kamala spoke to. And then he spoke about illegal immigration and how they're taking your jobs. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. He brought that to the fore, and of course, it's going to appeal to his base. This is red meat for his base. However, in terms of the undecided voter, in terms of those he wants to turn around, they don't want to hear about that. They want to hear about what his policies are going to do to make the country better for them going forward. And he never did answer that. He only went to the politics of division and of strife, and it wasn't a good look, Donald. It may have worked for you in 2016, but it's not working today because they know that's from your old playbook, and they're going to see right through that. So not the greatest of answers, Donald. It shows you came unprepared, especially for a question from the economy. And look at Kamala's face right now. It's a churlish grin, but a grin nonetheless. It's a grin. It's a beautiful grin because she knows she won that first question. She won it. So she's in it. Now she's ready to go. And that is one thing that, it's not an impressive answer from the Donald. Yes, fine, you're dealing with tariffs. You finally get rid of tariffs. And then you went on this rant in terms of, they're breaking the building. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. He's doing it again. And I'm sure his advisors had told him, stay away from this. But listen, it's like a deer in the headlights to Donald. He can't look away. He can't look away. And he did it again. So kudos to Kamala for that. Now, we're going to go into the 20th minute. Let's move a little further into time. And we're going to talk about... here's Donald. The thing about Donald is... There he is. The thing about Donald is he has the ego the size of Trump Tower. He has the ego the size of New York State. He has the ego the size of the United States. And once that ego is checked or bruised, he strikes back right away because he's the Donald, right? He's not one to shy away from people, taking shots at him because he just shoot right back, and that's exactly. It was sort of a best laid trap for Donald to respond to. Let's go back a little bit further here in terms of the question and into the answer, because I think this is a best laid trap laid by Kamala. And you know what? Kamala, being a prosecutor, knew he was going to take the bait for this. He was going to take the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Let's play this out, and we'll fill you in on the details.
Every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought.
You know what? Let's go back a little further because that's an important point.
Where we are and where we...
That's an important point. Now, we have spoken about abortion, okay? Now, this was a definite, I'll say this is one of those points where a major network was going to put this in as a debate point, especially with Kamala, because this is an easy win for her. This is an easy win. As long as you talk about women being the victims of abortion and such, you're going to win this. You're going to win this. Smart woman, as a classic narcissism at its finest. We're going to get to that. Smart woman, yes. It was a bait and switch. It was a definite bait and switch. You can see her prosecutorial, there we go, prosecutorial background showing through here. But we're going to rewind that back. We're going to hold off of that for just a second because the abortion issue kicked in. And this was something that a major network was going to put in there because this is an easy win for Kamala. Because this is a ladies' issue. This is definitely a ladies' issue, not so much a man's issue, because who has the final say on abortions? Usually it's the ladies. So, this is an easy win for Kamala. As long as she handled it in the right way, this is going to be a win for her. So let's play this back and hear what she had to say here. Because again, I think this is where we start here anyway. So let's go.
Stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out.
Okay, let's go back because she's talking about the economy again.
Thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi! Exclamation point.
No, let's go a little further then.
And you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job. But the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President,
Oh my God! When the host has to correct you on a statement there, Donald should have kept it simple. Should have kept that one simple. This is a no-win situation for you. We did the best for what we could do for the babies of this nation, for the mothers of this nation, and glad he clarified that. But he went off the rails a bit, and guess who's going to jump on that? You guessed it. Let's hear it.
your response to President Trump?
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President.
That's what you call an easy win. That's what you call an easy win. But what makes this even more special is the fact that she came with ammunition. The vivid analogies were... Look at Donald's face. He can't answer that. He can't answer to that. He can't answer to that. And guaranteed this lady's going to sign this law through an executive order. There's no doubt about that. Roe v. Wade is about to be overruled by the president through an executive order. But she made it crystal clear to the American public that abortion is needed for all Americans. She's going to make it another law. It's like, what? What can you say? What can you say? Lana BK says, very Orwellian and terrifying. What can you say? You can't say much about that. You just Donald, all he had to say was you're trying to protect the American woman and her right to choose by sending it back to the states. That's it. That's all you had to say. But but again, I'll say this. This is a setup. This is sort of a setup because on the issue of abortion, a male candidate really can't win. He can't win. can't win. He can say what's best, but he can't win this. This is an unwinnable war. He was placed into an untenable situation, an untenable. Yeah, it's an untenable area to be in, and quite simply, it was a win for them. It was a win for Kamala. That was an easy win. That's a gimme. That was an absolute gimme. That's a guy kissing a pass, nobody around him, taking it to the house. That's it. No, that was easy. That was easy. And I think that was set up by the network. If this was on Fox News or some sort of conservative site, that sort of question would have never seen the light of day. But since we're on mainstream media, national media, where there's more of a leftist slant, you're going to get that. But that was an easy win for Kamala. There, you can't even object to that. Let's move on to the unhinged Donald. Okay, wait a second. It's coming. Wait a second. Okay, and there it is. There we go. So we're going to get here to about the 26th minute. Now, this is the bait and switch, as Lana BK says, classic narcissism as fine as smart woman. Yes, this is the baiting that Kamala knew was going to win her points. This was an easy point because one thing that Donald is indeed very, very vain, very, very narcissistic, very, very. He has a high sense of self, and that's putting it lightly. So if you want to get to the Donald, insult him in a very highbrow manner, but insult him because you're going to get something back from him. You're going to get something back. Lord knows. And Kamala knew this, and through her prosecutorial background, she struck back. But let me see these comments here. If there's anything on the other end, I think we're good. Yeah, we got two signs, but no, we're good on that end. So let's go back. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to it here. And let's watch the bait and switch in action, people. It's classic trunk bait, and he can't resist. He cannot resist. Let's just move this back a little bit here, just a tad, because again, Kamala knew what she was doing here.
What has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans? Couples who pray.
Okay, this is more
and dream of having a family.
Yeah, this is more. Well, she knew.
Is why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand.
Watch for it.
But what
Here
we
it comes.
have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
The bait, ladies and gentlemen, that is the bait. Look at Donald's face right now. You can't make this stuff up. Look at his face. He didn't like that too much. He didn't like that. When somebody talks about crowds, when somebody talks about his place in society, he automatically gets his back up, as my English friends would say. He gets his back up, and his back is way up now. His antenna's really high now. Because if there's something that drives Donald, it is his ego. And his ego has been drawn into it. And so, you can't wait to answer this question. I'll let her finish.
And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands.
Before you answer that question, I have a comment here from Lana BK. She said, Hillary asked, in 2016, women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights, yes. Okay, well, again, but the thing about Hillary was, and she should have been the first president of the United States. The only thing is she ran on ego. And she was already establishment, and Donald ran as the outsider, and that's what won him the election. So, it's a poorly run campaign twice by Hillary Clinton, who should have been the first first female president of the United States, but she got arrogant. And all of his staffs are saying, Donald, no, but here, no, listen, can't stop him. His ego's been hurt. Watch, here we go.
Thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. And then showing them in a
He's
different
unhinged.
light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies.
Look at her face. Her plan worked, because anyhow you want to get at the Donald, talk about his crowd sizes. Talk about his crowd sizes, and look at him. It's like a shot to the penis. He's automatically hurt. He wants revenge. He wants it now. He wants blood. Here he goes.
The biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield.
Here it comes.
A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And
at this point, I'm going to say it now. At this point, Donald lost the debate. That's where he lost it. He lost it figuratively and actually. He lost the debate because he made it about himself. Instead of about his policies, he made it about himself. He internalized it. Look at Kamala having so much fun out here. It's like, listen, it's like Obama in 08. It's like Obama in 07. This is Obama 07 right here, laughing at his opponent McCain, and all he had to say, even though McCain was a noble man, he was nowhere near, he was nowhere near the statesman of Barack Obama. He was totally outclassed, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, or however you want to take it. But here, this is where he lost the debate. Talking about crowd sizes. They told him, don't take the bait. But if you talk about Donald and his crowd sizes, no kitty is safe. You got him. You got him. He's so easily rattled by the littlest of things. And I said littlest of things. You believe this? Anyways, this is Donald's Achilles heel. He can't take things lightly. Everything about himself is ego-driven, and his ego is so hurt when you talk about himself. Lana said, would you say this was the highlight of the debate for you? Yeah, it was the highlight of the debate for me. You talk about eating cats? What does it have to do with about policy when you're eating cats? His advisors were absolutely bricking and say he did it. He absolutely did it. And we told him not to do it, and he did it. He did it. Holy Jesus, he did it. He did it. No kitty is safe, Lana BK says. No kitty is safe. Let him continue. He's on it now. This is where he lost it. This is where he lost the debate. Unfortunately, this is where he lost the debate because he couldn't keep his big mouth shut.
This is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and
Sorry. And then he gets fact-checked. Do you believe this? It's just
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Oh, my God. Look at her. She can't believe her luck. She can't believe her luck. He can't. Look at him. He's like Joe Schmo. He bought damaged goods, and he can't take them back. He bought the farm, which is filled with contaminants, and he can't sell it back. He can't take back what he just said. Eating dogs and cats. Just because she talked about his crowd size. Remember what Barack said in the DNC? Barack says he was talking about crowd sizes. That set him off. And then to top it off, you got a woman talking about crowd sizes. Once your ego is bruised, and they get into phallic symbols, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Donald. What can I say? They knew this was coming. They knew this was going to happen, and lo and behold, he did. And here he is, looking like a jackass. Looking like a jackass. And you know what? Certain people want to root for Donald, but how can you root for him when he comedically falls out like this? And I mean it's comedic. The late night talk shows were all over this 2 ways to Sunday. And who's going to be the eventual winner of this? The one who's speaking now.
You talk about extreme.
Wow! Game blouses. That's all I got to say. Game blouses. If you know, you know. Game blouses. That is, I mean, she can't believe her luck that she took that bait and fell right into the trap. And believe me, her advisors, her speechwriters, her researchers, all over this. You want to get them without saying much of anything? Talk about crowd sizes. Go on, do it. Talk about that. Talk about crowd sizes. Go on, talk about crowd sizes. Got him. We fucking got him. Believe this shit.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if you didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him.
Here again, she's bruising his ego. It's another right cross, meeting at the jaw. Now she's talking about his former administration and how incompetent Donald is. It's another right cross to the jaw. How's it going to handle this? Somehow, how the other one handled, right? She ain't done yet, but you know what's coming, right? You know what's coming, right? You know what's coming.
His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy, look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists, they have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
That's a bruised ego talking. Because no way in hell has a... This needs to be fact checked. Let me not go there. This needs to be fact checked. But I would find it highly doubtful that he was the man to have the most votes of any Republican candidate in American political history. I'd find that very hard to believe. But again, this could be fact checked. And of course, I mean, if you're going by popular vote, yeah, okay, fine. You may have something to say there, but that all is about ego. That's an egotistical answer. Egotistical answer, to say the least. But let's continue with this here. Let's go.
Continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Deportation. So, and you're speaking about that all night. So again, let's move on to, I would say, foreign policy. And we go to 47 here, I believe. Yes, around here.
It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs.
There it is, January 6th. That's right, January 6th. Now, I think this is another plant by mainstream media against Donald Trump. This is an easy win for Kamala. The evidence is there for most people to see. It's alleged that he did start a riot on Capitol Hill, and he did incite. Well, yeah, he did incite a riot at Capitol Hill. I just said that, and he's saying, "Well, let's hear what he has to say. Let's hear. Let's go back a little bit. Let's set the scene first before we go there." Now that speaking of January 6th, let's continue with this.
I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
Okay.
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. Mm-hmm. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump.
Stop there. This is a win for Donald. It was a win for Donald in terms of speaking on fracking and its usage in the in energy consumption for the United States. Because clearly she moved away from that to talk about his record, to talk about lifting up American families. She was ill prepared for that answer. Quite simply, she was ill prepared. So instead of driving forward with it, she said, well, we are for fracking, but let me talk about this. So therefore, it's more of a distractive move. So I give Donald credit on that in terms of the energy debate. And because, again, she didn't have an answer really for fracking and their plans for expanding the idea. And so give a win to Donald for that. And, kudos to him. He was much more prepared on that front. And I think he won a point back on that issue. Yes.
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar. But they take different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota.
Oh, here we go.
And to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised.
But the fact of the matter is, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His dad was worth a lot of money. He was a builder, and you can't really hold that against him. He was born where he was born. He ate where he lived the way he lived, and that's not. I mean, that is the case for many a president. So let's not hold that against him. Let's speak on his policies now. And yeah, but she's gonna hit him on the head constantly with the fact that she grew up middle class. She grew up, working class to middle class, and he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. But that's not to be held against him. It's what you did with that silver spoon that counts, and so we should veer away from that subject. But again, she's going to hit him hard with that.
We don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of
understands.
time.
Okay,
Thank you.
just a second. We have. I'm just going to go back here. We
We
have a few comments on YouTube. Thank you for joining me on Talk Talk Live.
Was a cornerstone of our
Oh, wow.
democracy
How'd
and the
that
role
happen?
of a president
Let's get this
in a
back.
moment of
Oh.
crisis. Mr. President, on January
There we
6th,
go.
you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You
There
said
we
you would
go.
be right there with them.
And yeah, we got
The
some
country and
comments
the
on
world saw
YouTube
what
here that we
played
got
out
to
at
get
the
to.
Capitol
So
that day.
let
The
me
officers
get back
coming under
there
attack.
and stop this here. We'll move this back a little bit. But yeah, the YouTube crowd has jumped in. Kareem Lee said she never answered the question. She is sleepy. She's a Sleepy Joe disciple. Yes, she. Thank you very much for the comments there, Kareem. Is she a Sleepy Joe disciple? I think she is trying to remove herself from that shell. Yes, that goes without saying. But I mean, Donald made it that much easier. To be fair, made it a lot easier for him to be found out yesterday. It was not a good day for the Donald. Not a good day at all. I'm talking now. Love it. Throwed her classic response right back at her. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, there you go. I'll tell you, Donald is nothing but ego-driven. He loves. He does not like it when people attack him on many a front. And yeah. Donald likes seeking revenge out quickly and swiftly. And as soon as Kamala started talking about crowd sizes, as Obama did, he won us right back in the worst way. But anyways, back to it. Thank you very much, Kareem, for those comments. Greatly appreciated. Let's go back here. I hope everybody can still see. Yeah, okay. Let me move this. Let me adjust this screen here. Let me make sure that everybody can see what I see. Yeah. There we go. Oh. There. And there. And there. Okay, I'm just doing some adjustments. There we go. We're back. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me at Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Yes, we are still here talking about the debate between the Donald and Kamala, or Kambala, as Donald would say. Anyway, not right. Eric K., we're back. Let's move on to, oh yes, this is what he talks about. January 6th, the big January 6th debate. Let's continue with this.
Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
Now, again, this is another question that would have never seen the light of day on the likes of Fox News. It would have never seen the light of day. But since we're on mainstream media, which leans left, you're going to get this question. And it's going to be hard for the Donald to shake this. Very, very difficult, but let's see what he does with it.
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
one of those, David, one of those people going to be prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted, or in Seattle. They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask.
Okay. Donald, I know you're trying to deflect. I know you're trying to dissuade, especially from your antics on January 6th, which were, well, you had said those in your tweets and in your messages out on Truth Social that January 6th is going to be a big day, and you made sure it was with regards to your speech. Now you're trying to say that, oh, woe is me, I had nothing to do with it. Donald, it's very, very difficult not to say you didn't incite a riot that day. It's very difficult to say that. It would take a genius of a lawyer, genius of counsels to defend you on that charge, because not the greatest of days. But again, you turn it around and talk about, well, you have to deflect and divert because January 6th was pretty much an own goal. You knew that. You understood that. You gloated at the fact that they were invading the Capitol allegedly gloated at the fact that that your people invaded the Capitol and were threatening the lives of U.S. lawmakers. Not exactly the best of moves, Donald. You're still being prosecuted on these charges. Not the best of moves. And then you move on to discuss about border crime. And being the border czar that is Kamala Harris and how bad of a job she's doing. And then you talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, which is insulting to your portion of black voters if they believe in such things, and it endears those back to the left. But also you talk about, about Seattle and the riots there, and you want to criminalize them to take away the criminality of yourself, even though you've been indicted on 34 charges. It's quite Hippocratic, Donald. You're not winning here, and the least you could have said was, I apologize for those who to those police troops, but it's all about deflection and blame. Blame them, not me. Blame them, not me. Not a good look, Donald. Not a good look. Not a good look at all. Not a good look at all. And then you call out other people's crime before you call out your own. Not a good look at all, Donald. Gotta say.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
This was an easy win for Kamala. That was an easy points win for Kamala. Donald he did not even offer his condolences to the families of the officers who died on January 6th. He didn't even do that. All he was doing was protecting his own ass. That's the least you could have done, Donald. The least you could have done. If you are an advocate for the rule of law, if you're an advocate for any constabulary anywhere around the United States, that's the least you could have done, but you didn't do it. You wanted to cover your own ass. Not a good look, Donald J. Trump. Not a good look. And it was an own goal. And all Kamala had to do was just sit there and say, let's not go back to the past because January 6th was a bad day. The first insurrection against the American Republic since War of 1812. A bit of a history head myself. And you didn't even apologize to the families of those who died or who suffered any sort of psychological issues, did not even do that. All you said was, I did not start a riot. You're busy covering your own ass. And you know what? That's a bad look, Donald. Not a good look at all. Not a good look at all. And all you can do is deflect and dissuade blame. Not a good look at all. Let's see if there's any other comments out here. Because that was a bad own goal for Donald. He could not defend himself there. He still has indictments going on here. Yeah. We've got a few from Kareem here. Yes, indeed. He should have listened to Tulsi Gabbard more in this debate prep. Yeah, he should have. Listen, I'm trying to be as bipartisan and as fair as possible. He should have stayed away from this question. He should have apologized to those who died on the day. He should have played it down to say that, you know, for those who invaded the Capitol, it wasn't a good day for the American Republic. That's where he should have been. To see himself cover his own ass, not a good look. It was Deflect City, as Kareem said. It was Deflect City. It was Deflect City. It was Deflect City. And it wasn't a good look because he was going to lose on this issue. Big time. He still has indictments he hasn't gone through yet. He hasn't gone through. It's hard to defend a man like Donald J. Trump, who willfully and foolishly falls into these different traps. He knew that if you're going on a mainstream channel, you're going to get your ass handed to you if you're not careful. You had to be ultra nice. He had to be ultra nice, and he didn't do it. He didn't do it. He didn't care to do it. Funny how my, I'm not going to jinx it, but my Instagram is running a little longer today than it usually is. Kareem asks, do you think there will be a second debate? It depends. I think Donald would like to control the narrative of that second debate. As to where it is, I think he would much rather be on Fox News than let it be on home turf. The first debate, I believe, was CBS. Again, more mainstream media. But again, he was dealing with Sleepy Joe then, so that was an easy win for him. But the second debate, he ran into a prosecutor who was on her game. She punished him. Every time he slipped up, she punished him. Every time she slipped up, she punished him. Fox News would be the only time I would see a further debate. I think he wants to get on the campaign trail, rally his base, and stay out. Because again, listen, he does not want a second debate because that'll make him look bad. He looked bad yesterday. He did. He looked really bad. And especially to answer that question on January 6th. Yeah, Hannity could be the moderator. Yeah, well, Hannity and Fox News would rig the game so that Donald can get his own back. Let's say that. But other than that, I don't think he's going to agree to another debate, especially through the mainstream media. He did CBS. He did ABC. Now he just, he'd rather not. I don't think he would. I think he is quite happy being, just being where he is and enjoying the limelight there. So let's get back to it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we're running through this left and right. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live tonight. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. It's been a great night. Great night of debate here on something a little different here because I really wanted to get into this presidential debate and really get some more knowledge in here. Let me adjust this camera just a little bit more. There we go. Perfect. And, do it a little bit of a change of pace here. And thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live because I thought this was very lively. This was a great debate yesterday, and I thought that it needed to be talked about. So here we are. We're talking about it. And, it brings me back to my U.S. politic days from university. And, I did study some U.S. politics. I visited Washington from time to time. Visited the halls of Congress and how things are going there. It's up to Vance to kill the VP debate. Yeah, I don't trust Vance. Do you trust Vance, Kareem? I don't trust Vance. Vance is a walking robot. He is. I hope he bones up on policy, because I tell you what, he needs a big win that night. Because he already is proving unrelatable to the rank and file, where Tim Walz is, he's a man of the people, man. He's a man of the people, man. You can see that. He's very, very socially aware. Where Vance is very robotic. Very robotic. And it shows. It really does show. Like when a woman's showing him a pound and he's grabbing it, not very socially adept. Rich, but not very socially adept. I'm just saying. Anyways, let's continue with this. Thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live. Really great debate here on Vivek is my boy. I know Vivek's your boy, but Vivek is as far right. Well, I wouldn't say far right as it gets. I would say he's more. I think he goes in a little more than Donald does, and I think he wanted somebody who's a little safer. And again, he's more. And again, Vivek is more of a minority, so he's only reaching out to a certain few. Where I think Mr. Vance is reaching out to more of the Republican base, as they say. Tim Scott would have been a good choice too. Yeah, I would admit that he would have been a good choice as well. Admit it. Right, let's get back into it here. Where are we at here? Let's go to. Yes. Right. Yes, let's go to a Trump win again. Let's move on to the 108th minute, and then we can move on to the rest of the show from there. Yeah. Let's go into the. Well, let's see. We gotta go to the 108th minute. Yeah, let's go to the 108th minute, where we're gonna finally see a Trump win here, and this was on the issue of, let's see, foreign policy. Let's continue. Well, let's go a little further here. There. Let's go there. Let's move on a little bit further because again, one thing that Trump would know is foreign policy, and he was definitely on his game on this one, more so than Kamala.
Into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question.
Well done, Donald. He got his own back there. He did. He did. One thing that we'll give Donald credit for is the fact that he's much more of a foreign policy wonk than Kamala is. I think Kamala deals with domestic issues that much better, I think, in terms of foreign policy and in terms of macroeconomic political ideas and speech. I think that Donald is a much better candidate in that respect. I think he has more of a reputation throughout the world as being, a better businessman in that respect, and a better man ready for foreign policy because he can get deals done. But let's hear what Kamala has to say.
Do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war? Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here.
Now, let me say this. Now, she won a point there in terms of separating herself from Joe Biden, because to Donald, they're one and the same. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, one and the same. Basically, he's already said that they basically sing from the same hymn book. So it's great for her to say that I'm my own being, I'm my own person. We're two different people, and you shall address me as such. However, you'll hear what she has to say in terms of foreign policy, because I think this speaks to what Donald had to say about this.
A few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond.
Again, she didn't exactly avail herself too particularly well there. I think that Donald did come out on top of that. Again, he had to handle the war and such crises on his own because it was his administration, and she was just taking the lead from the former the president, Mr. Biden, President Biden, and it's clear for all to see that. So again, we got to give the point to Donald on that because he set things forward so that the United States diplomatic range was that much better. So again, it's a win for Donald there. However, we're just continuing now. Again, I think this is the point where Kamala does a bit of striking back here.
Something you said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now.
Give the Donald that one.
But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong men instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
You talked about Ukraine.
Again, I think Donald won that part of the debate there. I think he would have got a deal done in the Ukraine. I think, being that he's friends with Putin, I think that they would have stood down and there would be no more war in the Ukraine right now. And I think with President Biden siding with Ukraine right there, only extended the war, even though, as it has been said, Putin has tried to come to the United States and say, listen, I want to end the war. We're just going to take our territory here in the Donbass, and where it's ethnically Russian, and decide, that'll be that, and we'll leave the rest of the Ukraine to Ukrainians. It's just that such advances were thwarted, and the war continues, and more bloodshed continues, in spite of all things. Anyway, so again, I think Donald would have won that part of this sequence out in this point. So again, but still, in terms of the actual debate, I think it's more siding towards Madam Harris in this instance. Madam President Harris, and again, we're going to move on to the next topic.
Vladimir Putin, I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I'd never seen, for years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless
Okay,
war.
let's move on here.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States.
Let's move on here to I think that was
And
a
I don't
stalemate
care.
on Deb.
I don't care what she is. I don't care.
Here, this
You
is the
make a big
problem.
deal.
Okay, now,
By us because they didn't do what they were supposed
anything foreign policy
I-
related, I think it was a win
and
for
I don't
Trump.
care. I don't care what she is.
But
I don't care.
here is another nugget
And he said, why do you send me a
placed
picture of
in
my
the
house? I said,
way
you're going to have to
for
figure that
Kamala
out.
Harris, and that is with regards to race. How can I put this lightly? Donald has not been the best of racial advocates. His dad was a card-carrying member of the Ku Klux Klan, unfortunately. Full disclosure. And again, he's his record in terms of race relations isn't exactly the greatest. So here's another red meat moment for Kamala Harris because again, this is too easy. This is too good to be too easy and too hard to ignore.
Out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was
Moving
good,
on here.
I read that she was black, and that's, and I don't care. I don't care what she is.
You. I want to move on.
And
Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I'm
I don't
asking,
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris.
Stop right.
Blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they behind, and we wouldn't have left.
By race. And let's remember, who was constantly
this was a massive win
We're not
for
guilty.
Kamala.
But
I think it was a game, set, and match in this respect. Something that Joe Biden did not Freudian slip. Something that Joe Biden did not tackle in the last debate that Kamala Harris nailed this debate was his race relations record. Donald has had an atrocious, a shambolic, an absolute disgraceful race relations record. It's true. He took out an ad in the New York Times in the 80s asking for the execution of the Central Park Five. He's never really been a fan of black people in general. It particularly has certain friends in high places, of course, you know what I mean, like the Mike Tysons of the world and such. But those are people with money. And if you don't have money, then he's not a friend of yours. And also he has had his run-ins with different unions at his many hotel properties. This guy is not exactly the poster child for race relations. He's not. And somebody took a stand and held into ransom on that. And this is a no-win situation for Trump. He's going to lose this. But again, in his defense, this is something that will be mentioned on mainstream media so that Kamala can get an easy win. Because Donald can't win this. He can't win this question. He knows it full well. All he can do is apologize. All he could do was it spoke to a certain age of which I lived in, and that would be that. Other than that, you're not winning this, Donald. It's just a matter of saving face, really. Let's continue with this.
But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. She's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Time's up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond.
Again, weak answer. Trying to deflect, trying to deceive. Let me see if there's any other comments here. And then we're soon going to finish up. We have one more comment, and then that would be that. Let me see if there's any comments here in this. No, we're good. We're good. Yeah, it's that was a L for Mr. Trump on that front in terms of his race relations record, which is appalling. It is certainly appalling, and Lord knows that the MSNBC contributor did make a mincemeal out of Donald Trump on that subject because he can't win. This is a non-win situation. There are a few non-wins. He can't get through. That's abortion. He talked about that. He talked about, that was a bait and switch. He talked about peace relations he did. And here again is biceps and chest. Sorry about that, guys. I just wanted to write that down. But yeah, it wasn't a great day for the Donald on that front. But let us do one final comment, and that is regarding, yes, well, the one thing that spoke to race relations, and that was, well, the inclusion of Obamacare, because Obamacare is still in the books in the United States, of partial health, universal health insurance, still in the books, even though Donald has vowed for 8 years to get rid of it. He never did. But let's hear from these two titans now. Let's go. There we go.
Briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of all disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
you,
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I just
going
need
to
to
move
respond
on, Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no.
Okay, well, there you go. That was the final nail in the coffin for me. And that was the end of the Donald in this debate. Obamacare, he tried to kill for the last 8 to 9 years. It never happened. He couldn't kill it. Obama was the unkillable bill because no matter what your social strata was, Obamacare was something that everybody really wanted and needed, and it would be electable killer if Donald ever crossed that out from the list of benefits available to those who wanted it. Obamacare was a hit, and Donald couldn't stop it, no matter how much, no matter what was said or what was done. It's a home run hit for Mr. Obama and for the Democratic Party, because he knew, I think Donald knew deep down that if he tried to repeal that, he'd have a riot on his hands, way deeper than what happened January 6th. So he decided, you know what, I'm stopping this. I'll say we're working on it and such, just to stroke your ego a bit, but you know you're not working on it, Donald. You know you're not working on it. Let's hear what the lady, Madam Harris, has to say, and then we're going to close out. Thank you very much for joining me at Talk Live on IG
You
and
still
YouTube.
do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now.
Concepts of a
But
plan.
if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. When I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate, and the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, "No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan." And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass this
President
prologue
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to
Okay, we're going to stop there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We got the majority of things, but that was pretty much game, set, and match right there. That was pretty much game, set, and match. In terms, let me turn it back to me. But thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We had a good debate on these things. Now, let me just say this. I'll just go back to the full cam. In terms of let's call it a spade here. In terms of wins for Donald Trump, we can say the war in Ukraine, tariffs, and foreign policy, especially in Afghanistan. I think Donald is way more adept to handle international affairs. And he has done it on a time-to-time basis. Plus, we want to have Kamala have her moment. Well, if Kamala needs a little more time on the scene in order to build those shortcomings out. But in terms of abortion, in terms of January 6th, in terms of crowd sizes, where he went a little haywire in terms of food consumption of a animalistic variety. Obamacare, yeah, we're talking about middle class, small, big tax breaks. We're talking about race relations, and we're talking about yes, all these things. I think that is what gives Kamala Harris the hand down win. There's no doubt about that. Let me just sit down for a second. This is a big night for both candidates. For Kamala Harris to endear herself to her public and really sway undecided voters her way, and for Donald, the same thing. It was to have voters swing his way and not have them be afraid of the former president. And quite simply, one of them did get their agenda across, and that was Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris did a masterful job yesterday. I really think she won this debate hands down. Now, again, if you speak to bases, you may have different tastes, and therefore they had won. However, when looking at a unprovoked eye, the first thing that they want to do is to let's just settle things down between ourselves and the middle class, and that's exactly what Kamala did. She did all these talking points in terms of crowds, January 6th, abortion, Obamacare, race relations. All these things are, well, domestic / middle class issues that everybody wanted to hear. I want to hear her stance on. And again, she knocked it out of the park in that sense. She knocked it out of the park. But again, and in terms of the war in Ukraine, in terms of tariffs, in terms of in terms of foreign policy, yes, Trump won. However, you got to consider the source here of these questions. These questions are for the Democrats among us, and it was very easy for her to pick up the win today as long as she said the right things at the right time, and I think she did that. Donald was found out on many an occasion, and unfortunately, she lost his debate. Let's face facts. He lost the debate. Donald Trump lost the debate. Kamala Harris won, and it is, I think, now Kamala Harris's race to lose. If he does lose, all the power to him. But I really don't see them winning this election. I don't see it anymore. I don't see it. I used to be fearful of them in terms of what in terms of getting things done on January 6th, but not anymore. It's just not the greatest of size and not the greatest of strength. However, it is hoped that we can have another debate, because I think this battle deserves another debate. I hope they do have another debate before the November primaries and the November election, because I think that this is a day where Donald Trump has to take stock and lick his wounds, because he tried to come out fighting, but there's too much to defend, and Kamala fought this to her prosecutorial best and won, and quite simply won. So thank you very much for joining me on Talk Talk Live. This is an extended version of Talk Talk Live. Lord knows we have been here for 2 hours. 2 hours talking about the presidential debate. And and the fact that indeed Kamala Harris was the victor yesterday. She was hands down the victor. I think she had way better moments on her resume, including abortion, January 6th, crowd size, Obamacare, middle class families, tax breaks policy, and I don't know what that is. War in Ukraine, tariff, and foreign policy on the win for Donald J. Trump. So, thank you very much for joining me at Talk Talk Live. We'll be back for another show either Friday or next week. I'm going to try and get one in on Friday because I owed you one yesterday. We have a lot more topics to talk about on Talk Talk Live that I haven't even that I've been wanting to get to for weeks, but every time I try, stuff like this happens, and we had to jump on this. So thank you very much for your comments. Thank you very much for your participation. We're going to get out of here. I am feeling like Sleepy Joe right now. It's 11:49. I'm going to go. Thank you very much for joining me. And we're going to shut it down here on Instagram. And thank you very much for your participation. And good night from Toronto, Instagram. Yes, and thank you very much for joining me at Talk Live. We are back here on YouTube, and we'll be back either Friday or next week with new topics for new shows. And thank you very much for joining me on this U.S. presidential debate special here on YouTube on Talk Live. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTALK.com. Please do that for me. Get your comments in below as to who you thought won the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald J. Trump. Should be interesting in and of itself because it takes on a life of its own. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. We'll talk soon. Peace.